I am not teaching, I am publicly learning. But hi and welcome to Learning for the Life in the UK test part 398, key figures part 2, that is on page 169, by doing standing leg gymnastics. And if you participate in the standing leg gymnastics, that's at your own risk. So the first exercise is for moderator. The feet are standing together, and we're just going the way to the balls of the feet and back to the heel. And we're just doing that back and forth. Now, we are now talking about King Richard III. He was the leader or the head of the House of York, and he died in the Battle of Bosworth Field. He was one of the causes, he was one of the people who might have become the reigning monarch, which led to the Roses of the Wars from 1455 and 1485. 1485 was the Battle of the Houses of York, Battle of Bosworth Field, where he died, and it were his remains which were found in 2012 in a parking lot, I'm pretty sure. And the other thing, I came across more sonnets by John Keats, and they had all also 14 lines. So King Richard III, he died in the Battle of Bosworth Field, and his niece Elizabeth of York married then Henry Tudor, and now we were all friends, and they became one house also, and had been one rose, the Rose of York and Tudor. We're going to look it up because it's actually here now. Yes, it's also King Richard III. Now what was it? It was the red and white rose of the House of Tudor, just House of Tudor. It was the House of Lancaster, the House of York, and now the House of Tudor. The next exercise, we're having one leg in front, and we're rolling in front. We're lifting the heel of the leg which is behind. We're going back and we're lifting the toes of the knee of the leg which is in front. So King Richard III. Now we have Henry VII, Henry Tudor. He continued the policy of his father. No, it was Henry VIII. No, he is Henry VII. He is Henry VII. Henry VIII continued the policies of his father Henry VII. So Henry VII, that is Henry Tudor. That is the one of the leader of houses of Lancaster who married Elizabeth of York. The next one, Elizabeth of York, the niece of King Richard III. And he became king. Okay, but with one thing, now first Henry VIII. They are all now named together. Let's make it one thing, just about Henry VIII. What was about policy in the church? After his victory in the Wars of the Roses, Henry VII wanted to make sure that England remains peaceful and that his position as king was secure. He deliberately strengthened the central administration of England and reduced the power of the nobles. He was thrifty and bit of the monarchy's financial reserves. When he died, his son Henry VIII continued the policy of centralizing power. It was centralizing power. Okay, changing the leg. I'm doing the same with the other leg. Now we're having here Henry VIII. Henry VIII, he is famous for having 6 wives and for breaking apart with the Roman Catholic Church. He had wives. The next persons here listed are Catherine of Aragon, Anne Boleyn, Jane Seymour, Anne of Cleves, Catherine Howard, and Catherine Parr, all in relative order. Now, he had a child, he had probably multiple children with Catherine of Aragon, but just one survived, that was Mary. He wanted to divorce Mary, but he needed the approval of the Pope, of the head of the Roman Catholic Church. The Pope wasn't giving it, so he unchained England from, he set free, I'm missing the vocabulary. He broke with the church, and now he formed the Church of England, with himself at the head of it. The next exercise, the legs are outside, and we go from one leg to the other, to all this system here. And when he divorced Catherine of Aragon, then he married Anne Boleyn. With her he had Elizabeth, but Anne Boleyn was unpopular, and she was accused of having lovers, and Henry VIII was being executed. Then there was Anne of Cleves. No, first Jane Seymour. Jane Seymour, with her he had a child, a male child, Edward, and she died, so Jane Seymour died shortly after the birth. When he married again, Anne of Cleves, for political reasons. She was a German princess. Then he married Catherine Howard, his fifth wife. She was accused of having lovers and executed. And when he married Catherine Parr, she was a widow, and they lived only shortly together because he died, she married again, but died also again shortly afterwards. I think that's mostly everything. Now we're having Edward VI. Edward VI, he was his third child, so Henry VIII's third child, and also the child of Jane Seymour. The next exercise for this, we haven't done this right. We have one leg in front, and we're going onto the leg with our whole weight, and then back onto the back leg a bit. And over in the front, onto the forward leg, and again back. When we're having, yes, Edward VI, he reigned from the age 9 until 15, then he died. I don't know the numbers now. Maybe we should learn at one point all the numbers which we have. But with so many missing numbers. So, Edward VI, and yes, I don't really get it, he did also political changes. He was Protestant. This is maybe one of the important things. Then we have Mary, the Bloody Mary. She was Henry VIII's first child, and together with Catherine of Aragon, the Spanish princess. And Bloody Mary, she was a devout Catholic, and she persecuted the Protestants. That's why she has the nickname Bloody Mary. But she reigned also not that long, and now Elizabeth I came onto the throne. The second child of Henry Tudor and the child of Anne Boleyn. Elizabeth I, she was popular, and particularly did that happen after in 1488. The English Navy defeated the Spanish Armada, who was sent out to Catholicism England. And during the time there was also Shakespeare and so on. And there was a flowering of all that, and also, not colonization, pioneerism and sailing around the world was established, and people were looking for new roads to trade. And now the other part of the story, that Mary, Queen of Scots, she was, I don't know if I remember named who her father was, but her father died, and when she was just 8 days or 8 weeks old, she became the Queen of Scotland. Now she lived her childhood in France, and when she came back, her husband was murdered, and now she had given the power to her son, James I, because it must be that one. The next one, James I, and she fled to England and hoped for help from her cousin Elizabeth I, but Elizabeth I was suspecting her of wanting to take over the English throne and kept her as a prisoner for 20 years. And then she was accused of trying to overthrow the English throne and executed. Then there's James I. These are the ones now which are harder to distinguish. But we're going to the next. Had we done it? This was the second leg. I just hadn't done the exercise properly. The next exercise, with feet are standing together, and we're just leaning around and coming again back. So James I, he was the son of Mary, Queen of Scots, and because Elizabeth I had no children, or legitimate heir, also no children, he became king of England when James VI. Now there was Charles I. Now all that I'm a bit confused with had gone back and forth, and I don't know under whom now the prosecution was and the going into the Americas and so on. And when people were prosecuted, maybe we should make that somehow that we write down who was Catholic and who was Protestant. That would be a beginning. Like as it is with battles, so a sort sign into behind the names, who was what. So Charles I, he was not on good foot with the Parliament. He just reigned for 20 years oftentimes without approval of the Parliament. But when he really needed the money of the Parliament, because he wanted that the people in Scotland and the Presbyterian Church have a new book to pray to, or buy with. Now, and they weren't happy about it, and there was an invasion of the Scottish army, and he needed the money, but the Parliament wasn't giving him the money, and a civil war broke out between the Cavaliers supporting Charles I and the Roundheads supporting the Parliament. Now we had the Battle of Metzfield and Marston Moor, where he was defeated. That must have been 1746. Actually, I have to do the exercise a bit more concentrated and look at a more fixed point. And we're doing now the last exercise, calf raises. So it's just coming up out of the dust. What happened when he was in 1749 executed, because he still wasn't able to find an agreement with Parliament. Now, I think that is it. When we're having Charles II, the son of Charles I, the Scottish weren't so happy that Charles I was executed. They wanted Charles II on the throne. That Oliver Cromwell again, he defeated also him. He fled. He was once in an oak tree, allegedly, and then he stole his way to Europe, and he hid there. He lived there in exile. That's the first part of the story. Now we're having Oliver Cromwell is here named by politicians and other leaders. Here was he named by monarchs in that tableau. I was already wondering about that. Here, monarch, Cromwell. Okay, that was the last exercise with calf stretches. We are having the heel on the ground and we're leaning a bit in front. Okay, when we bring it to the end, Charles II. Now Oliver Cromwell reigned, and then Richard Cromwell, the son of Oliver Cromwell, we're going to do it later. But the people weren't so happy with Richard Cromwell, and they invited him back in May 1660, the first May. He came back and was crowned again king, the Restoration. Then there was James II. Now we're starting to confuse that one. Why is not Bonnie Prince Charlie named by monarchs? Because he wasn't on the throne. And with the other leg. So where was James II? He was the... Oh, who was the brother? Yes, he was the brother. He was the brother of Charles II. And he was Catholic. And the people feared that again, after his wife got a son, became again a Catholic, the next king. And no, they weren't so happy, and they invited William III, or William of Orange from the Netherlands in. He happened to be the husband of Mary, who was the eldest daughter, and she was Protestant, as well as William of Orange, of James II. They reigned, and that is the Glorious Revolution, because now fighting happened in England. James II fled to Europe. When there was Mary, she was the daughter of, I don't know, maybe I'm looking at half of this one or something. When there was Mary, and she was the daughter of James II. She reigned together with William of Orange. Then there was Queen Anne. I think we're just going to end here. We're going to continue in the next part. I thank you very much, and until next time.